Hi guys, Neil, Italia Autos here. I am out on the road again today. It is Monday the 23rd of March and I am on my way to pick up this vehicle. I'm not going to say what it is yet, just going to get some stuff out of the way first. I'm a bit concerned with all this coronavirus thing going on at the minute. So I've decided to get this car today rather than later in the week, just in case it does go onto lockdown. Still going to try and film some content for you guys. I have got a few ideas that I can do and film them from the unit still. I'll work on my own and I'm in the correct trade, so I should still be able to carry on working. And with how quiet it's gone, I do believe that YouTube will probably be my only source of income for a while. So if you can support me by booking in work, that would be much appreciated. And also please watch these videos as much as you can, so I can still keep making this content for you guys, because if I'm not earning money I can't make anything. Yeah, please support me where you can. Back to the topic on hand. I'm now heading up the A38 to go and pick up a 147 GTA. It is an import, so it will be the Japanese automatic gearbox. I've never owned one, never driven one, never seen one in the flesh. So this will be a little bit different for me, and probably different for you guys, because I know there aren't many of them on the road. This one does have a mechanical problem. I have been told that the cam belt has slipped, causing some damage. The garage that it's been to is another Alfa specialist. They have retimed the engine up. It will start and drive, but it doesn't run very well, and there is some knocking. So I would imagine it has valve damage at the very least. So the engine is going to have to come out of that. Now, I've never taken one of these Speed GTA boxes out, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of research on that. If it's anything like the Speed boxes on the 147 2-litre petrols, you've just got to remove the actuator from the top of the gearbox and leave everything plugged in, and off it comes. So that should hopefully be relatively simple. As I'm asking on all my videos now, I am trying to build my subscriber rate up now. As I've said earlier, I have surpassed 10,000 now, which was my original target from 12 months ago. Next target's going to be 20,000 now. So if you're watching this video, or you've watched previous videos and you are liking what you're seeing, please think about subscribing. It does mean a lot to me, and I appreciate every one of you guys that spend your time to watch my videos. So I just thought I'd comment about how quiet the roads are at the minute. Today's the first day when all the kids have been off school. This afternoon, I believe McDonald's are closing. This is like really big news for everybody. There's, in the UK anyway, there's going to be nowhere for anybody to buy any food, because only people eat McDonald's apparently. I would normally avoid doing a journey like this on a Monday because it's normally chaos, but pretty much on the road it's just lorries and vans. I'm probably passing about 4 or 5 lorries to one car, so it's quite scary on how quiet things have gone. It's very surreal. It's still quite unbelievable what's probably coming, but interesting to see what it's going to be like if we do have a lockdown. Keep safe, people. Right, back with the GTA now. I never filmed anything up in Leeds, just purely for the fact there was loads of building sites around and they were all working and you couldn't hear a single thing. So drove it all the way back to the unit now. Let's have a look around it and see what it's like. So it's a 2005 147 GTA, Japanese import. It was imported to the country, I think, 2019. The last owner purchased it in December of 2019. And the first thing he's done is get a full respray on it, cam belt, water pump, and a service. The car appears to be in very good condition. The paintwork seems to be okay. It is rather dirty at the minute, so we'll hold my judgment on the paintwork. But it does seem like it's a reasonable job. I know the Japanese do tend to look after their cars quite well. It hasn't come with any Japanese service history. I wouldn't be able to read it if it did, but it has come with the receipts of the cam belt work which has been recently done. Quick sneak peek at the interior for you guys. It is a cloth interior. It's the first time I've seen a cloth interior in a 147 GTA. It does have a little bit of wear. on the seat bolster, but I do believe it's very similar material to the 147 seats in the standard spec. So we might be able to use some of that material if I can find a seat to make that a little bit better. As far as I can tell, everything works on the inside, everything's present and accounted for, and there's very little signs of wear. It has covered 83,000 kilometres, which I do believe translates to around 51,000. I'll have to work that out. So we'll also have to see if I can transfer the mileage from kilometres into miles, or whether I can just fit another V6 Speedo. Or does it have the gear select shifter? Oh, it has it in a screen there, so we might be able to get away with popping in a 3.2 Speedo from something else and then see if the mileage will transfer over. It does have a added head-up display showing the mileage and things like that on there. And that little noise you heard was the little card reader thing down here. Apparently in Japan, when you are driving, you have to have a card inserted to drive because of the toll roads. Don't know how it works, so we'll do a little bit of research on that, and if you guys want to know more, or you know more than me, let me know. Now, the problem with the car, it does run, but it does have a tick, sort of a valve tick or a hydraulic lifter tick. So the top end of the engine is at least going to have to come off. I have heard it running. I will start it for you in a second so you can hear it, but I won't be running it for very much longer, because at the minute, yeah, it might want both heads rebuilding, but the bottom end I would hope is okay. So if you let me know in the comments below once you've heard it what you think the problem might be. So there we go, that's the noise on it. What do you guys reckon it is? Do you reckon it's top end, bottom end, front bank, rear bank, stuck valve, bent valve, hydraulic lifter? Love to know what your opinions are on it before I start tearing it apart. It's been a while since I've been able to work on this, purely for the fact that I've had a car stuck on the ramp for the last few months. You've probably seen it in the back of the videos, a big red 166. The story with that is some valve damage has happened, so I've had to take the heads off it, send the heads off to be refurbished, but we're struggling, or the company that I've sent it to are struggling to get some valves through it at the minute, so we are on hold on that one, so I've had to wheel it outside. So I've now got this ramp free. This car can be on here for a few weeks now, so I can spend some of my spare time on it. If I need to pull the engine, it's in the right position so I can pull the engine out of it. I hope to be stripping it all down today, having a look inside the cylinders with the camera, if it'll fit inside the spark plug wells, and also getting all the hydraulic lifters out to make sure they're all okay. So I think it's going to be one of two problems. It's either going to be hydraulic lifters damaged, or it's going to be the top of the pistons, top end knock. So we're going to have to try and investigate that. So hopefully it's just a valve lifter, because that's the cheapest possible repair. But as with GTAs, assume it's going to be the worst repair possible. Now I've checked all the spark plugs, they all look okay. They're not overly wet, they're not overly black, they're not overly white. So there's nothing wrong with the spark plugs, which is probably safe to assume that was the case anyway. Now I've got access to the pistons, I'm going to stick my camera down each cylinder and have a look to see if I can see any damage. What I'm probably just going to see is a lot of black carbon buildup, but mainly I'm going to be looking for any sort of valve contact or any scratches in the walls. And once I've done that, if everything looks okay, I'm going to do a compression test on each cylinder. I would like to see each one sort of above 150 psi. Other than carbon buildup, I can't see anything there. There's no marks on the pistons or anything like that. So that cylinder was too high up for me to check the walls, so I will have to move the engine around to check that out. Do you want to get in? There we go. That's fine. We've got 150. I would like to see that to be sort of a standard amount. About 160. Again, that's about 160, probably just under. Just under 160 again. Again. And again, it's about 155. So they're all okay within tolerances. So there's nothing wrong with the compression of the engine. So the valves are okay. So what we need to do now is remove both these engine covers and all the gubbins at the side of the engine so we can time it all up. So I can then remove the 4 camshafts and I can then get the hydraulic lifters out to see how they are. What I'm going to check now is I'm just going to make sure all these end caps are tight. one was loose. Not enough to cause it to rattle though. Okay, so 2 were probably under torqued, the rest are tight enough, so I wouldn't imagine that those 2 that weren't torqued up causing any problems. See any visible damage on any of the cams? Wear is actually quite minimum. So let's get it up in the air now and get all the cam belt related stuff off so we can delve deeper into the engine. You can see I've actually removed pretty much everything from the cam belt area. I've actually removed all the covers and I've actually removed the engine mount there. So let's crack on. I'm going to take this one out first because this seems to be where the noise is coming from. So it would be nice if it was just 1 or 2 lifters. We should see better days. I'd say it's lifters. Right. Let me show you a good lifter first, that's going to be easier. Now, this lifter here, to me, is perfectly fine. If you look in the centre there, that's the hydraulic part of it, and you shouldn't really be able to push that at all. And as I'm trying to push it, not moving at all. Let's move over to this one here. Not much force I'm going to put into it, and look how much that's moving up and down. See? As you see, this one also has gone. Let's try the end2. So unfortunately, after 10-20 minutes of searching on the internet, nowhere has these in stock. So I'm going to have to use some used ones, unfortunately. I'm going to go through all the others and check them thoroughly, make sure they're all okay, and then replace the ones that need changing, and then pop it all back together and let's see if the noise is gone. I've changed 10 of the lifters, so we now have 24 good lifters in there. I've started putting it back together. I've put the cams back in, torqued all of the lobes up, and I'm just starting to put the rest of it back on now. So we're just going to jump cut until we're putting it back together now. No point you watching all the same thing but in reverse. Actually, that's what I could do. I could just play it back to you in reverse, but no, I won't do that. So yeah, see me in a couple of hours once I have put this all back together. Other than needing to top up the water, put the front cover on and the side cover on, we are pretty much ready to go. I have connected the computer to it and reset the fault codes from when I was cranking it without the coil packs on and the throttle body on. So fingers crossed we're good to go. I do expect the top end to be noisy until oil circulates around the engine and gets into the hydraulic lifters a bit better. So hopefully after a minute or two it should quieten down. Oh man, so yeah, bottom end is knocking. We've gone through everything else on the top end just to try and eliminate everything. The top end is quieter now, there's not as much rattling going on, but the bottom end does need a rebuild. So unfortunately, I think we're going to have to leave this one here, and I'm going to have to get the engine out and send the bottom end off to be rebuilt. We are a little bit further along now. I have removed the engine, if you can see in there. There is nothing left there. And what we've got to do now is finish taking the rest of the engine apart, pull the heads off, pull the sump off, and see if we can find out what's wrong with it. So I'm going to insert a video now of me removing the engine. I shall see you in a few minutes, and we can start having a look at the engine. So here is the engine now. I've spent a few hours removing everything off the engine. I've still got to probably take the water pump off and the cooling pipe, which is here, and a few sensors, but we are at the point now where all the cams are removed, all the followers are removed, and we just need to pull these heads off now and see what it's like inside. Rubber hammer now. I'm just going to hit the side of the head to get it all to free off from the block and hopefully the liners, so the liners don't come out with it. And hopefully the head will come off nice and easily. Now this is the back block. I don't think there is a problem with this one, other than carbon build-up on top of the pistons. It's quite a lot of it actually. The liners look okay. There's no scoring marks. There's no major gaps or anything like that there. So hopefully the problem isn't with that. Now let's tilt this engine over a bit so we can get this other head off now, and I'm just going to get this one out of the way. So let's move the engine over onto the other side so we can get the front head off. Now again, the same with this one. And instantly, I think I have found the problem. Let's go and have a look at it. Just looked on this head, and I found that little shard of metal sitting on top of the engine. There's no valve damage. There's a tiny little mark there. But where that's come from, we do not know. So let's have a look at the block. There's no score marks. So now let's try and get this sump off. Now I've already freed it off on the other side, so it shouldn't take much at all to get off. Right, let's have a look in the sump. Straight away I can see shards of metal, which looks like a shell of some description. Can you see that on camera there? So yeah, we've definitely got a shell or something's fell in the engine. The sump also has a little bit of sealant all over it and little bits of metal in it. So yeah, the bottom end is crackerjackered. So guys, I have now removed all of the pistons and conrods. The main crank appears to be perfectly okay. There's no marks on where any of the bearings were. On one of the shells, which I'll go and show you now, think it was number 3. We do have some score marks, and that's the only one with marks on them. All the other pistons and shells, yes, they have a little bit of wear on them. I found a little bit of shell on that one, so is it number 4? Which is what I originally thought it might be. But I've checked all the pins and for play, and I can't see anything jumping out to me as obvious. So the best thing to do now is get it to my engine guy, who is going to totally rebuild it to be like new. And hopefully, when he does all the measurements and tolerance checks, he will hopefully tell me what has happened to it. And as you can see behind me, I finally have the 3.2 engine back to go in the Jap Import GTA. So in this episode, I'm going to be rebuilding everything onto the engine and getting it ready to go back into the car. So it's been 12 months now since I purchased this car. I literally bought it just as lockdown was happening. So it's taken all this time to get it ready to go, purely for the fact engine shops causing delays because of parts not available and the workload during COVID. Me not having the time to chase anything up and get anything done. But now, fingers crossed, we can put it back in and start nursing this thing back to health. So I actually think I've done a pretty good job of leaving the bolts in reasonable places and putting them back where they should have been, because I found everything immediately that I need to get it back together. I was a bit worried that I would have lost the main bolts which go through the engine mounts to hold the engine in, but nope, found that straight away. They were actually still on the car in the engine mounts, ready to go. So what I need to do now, I've lifted the car on the ramp to a sufficient height where I can get the engine back under. I now need to line up this hole and this hole on the gearbox mount to the mounts on the car, and then we can get it bolted in and get the forklift out of the way and start bolting things back together to the engine in the car. But unfortunately, the car itself has been a little bit neglected over these last 12 months, just purely for the fact of how dusty it gets in the unit. So it does need a good clean and a little bit of TLC once we've got it back up and running again. So what we're going to be doing today, you're going to have a little montage of me putting bits and bobs back on the engine, and then we're going to start to put the thing back in the engine bay. I have got to find out a lot of the bolts. They are sort of spread around in different boxes, so I'm going to sort some of those out now. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy this video, and I shall speak to you in a moment. So just talking back to originally on the car, I bought the car with a knocking noise on the engine. I had my suspicions that it could have been a dry lifter or something not quite right with the lifters. So removed the cam belts, took all the lifters out, changed about 8 of the hydraulic lifters. They're the lifters in there. We put it all back together again, and it was still knocking. So I was under the assumption it was something wrong with the top end of the engine. So engine was taken out, stripped all the way down, and all I could find was a little bit of metal on top of one of the valves, which had sort of embedded itself, which wasn't loose at the time, but with the engine moving at sort of 4,000 RPM or whatever, it could come loose quite easily. And found a few sort of chips of metal in the sump. So it would seem that the only thing making the engine knock, other than a few little bits of metal in the sump, was this little bit here. Don't know what it's from. Still don't. It looks like it could be the outer casing of something. But yeah, that's the bit which was causing the knock inside the engine. So what we worked out is there was nothing majorly actually wrong with the engine. All the bottom end was perfectly fine. There was no marks on any of the shells, no marks on any of the piston liners. So it comes down to that. It was just that little bit inside the engine, which was probably rattling around when we were running it, making it sound like we got a top end knock. So it's all been rebuilt. The heads have been remanufactured, all new seals, gaskets, everything to do with the engine has been done. So it is pretty much like new. So I have the laborious task today of starting to rebuild it all. So these are just the bits that I've got to get on the engine. Not everything. There's a few bits of scrap that I've got to put back on there, but we've got the flywheel to put back on. We've got the gearbox, literally everything else that bolts onto the engine, as well as putting the cam belt on it again. What I do need to find out is whether the clutch is the same as a GTA, a manual box, compared to the Celli-Speed one. So that is something I've got to find out. So I'm going to get cracking on getting all this back on the car now. Not sure how much of this I'm going to film. I'm probably going to film it all, just me rebuilding the engine bit by bit and speed the footage up when I edit it. But we shall see how it goes and what problems I run into. So we're going to get cracking on now then. So we're now a few hours later. I did have a little bit of confusion, had a bit of a brain fart, and I forgot which way the cam locks went round. So I had to phone a friend and sort it out. And we got there in the end, and we now marked the cam lock so I don't get confused again. So all timed up now. Cam belt is all on. I have reused the tensioners and the water pump because it had literally done 50 miles or less than that since the last cam belt was done. So it's all good. I did put a new cam belt on it. I'd never reuse a cam belt. I've put a few of the water pipes on and replaced a few of the gaskets. I've put the oil pump on with a new filter. So now we're all timed up. We can pop some spark plugs into it and then start getting the injector runners and everything else on there. It took about 45 minutes of messing around. It was quite difficult to line up. I did catch the O2 sensor on the back of the power steering rack. Hopefully it'll be okay, or I might have to get another one of those. But yeah, we're back in now. Hard part's done. And now it's just a case of bolting everything back on now. All I've done off camera now is just put these two power steering pipes back on, so I can now get the front subframe into position. I've only been at it for a few hours and I've had enough already. It's been quite troublesome to get that subframe on. It has misbehaved trying to get all the bolts lined up. It was a little bit of a pain. Just putting everything on loose at the moment, just so I can make sure everything all the way around lines up. Right, a few electrical connections now, and the fuel pipe. I've got to find the little connector which goes here as well. Tidy them away a little bit tidier, but that can wait for now. I've also got to sort out this connector because the end is broken on it, so we might get a warning light when we eventually start it for the lambda sensor because the connection isn't very good. So we'll just leave that there like that for now because we know we've got to mess with it again. A few more bits of pipe work. Okay, we're ready for the engine ECU to be put back on. Now, for the life of me, I've got to try and remember where it all gets connected up, whether I've connected up the Celespeed hydraulic lines or not. I can't remember whether I've done them all off the car, or there is one anyway, so I've got to put this one on. Wherever that goes. I can't remember where it goes because it's been that long. So I just remembered where the connector was underneath there. I did forget to push record, so there we go, that's where that went. Right, let's put some of the automatic gearbox fluid in, the proper CS speed stuff. Make sure we're not peeing out anywhere. So far so good. "13 months in the making," nearly 14 actually, and I think we're almost ready to crank it over to get some oil pressure and then we can get the car started. So what I've done, underneath here you've got your crank and cam position sensor. I've disconnected those so the engine won't start. I'm just going to crank it over now, hopefully it will, and let's see if we can get some oil pressure. Wheel level should have gone down now. Yes, it has, so I need to pop some more oil in it now. It's gone around the oil cooler. Just make sure there's no fluids leaking, and there isn't.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1.
So there we go. After however many months now, she's finally running and she sounded okay. A little bit lumpy when she first started up, but that's as expected considering it had got no fuel in it. So she runs, she starts. I've still got several other things to sort out because I noticed as I started it, it said battery charge low. So whether it was just loose battery connections or the alternator's not charging, I've got to check out. Hopefully it isn't because I don't fancy taking that sub frame off for the third time. So what I've got to do now is I've ordered some coolant. I'm waiting for that to come, fill it up with some coolant, recheck everything for leaks and fault codes, and then we can run it for a bit longer. Sometimes it's just good to sit back, go and have a cup of coffee, think things through, and then all of a sudden you'll have a light bulb moment and I go, why isn't that alternator charging? Everything's been put back right. I've even got it on the ramp and checked everything. Then I just realised I ordered a new power steering belt. I haven't put it on, have I? So lesson learned. So let's get this power steering belt on and the alternator should start charging then. So there we go, guys. It's been quite a while, but it will now move under its own power again without a knocking engine. I've still got a few jobs to do. The gear drive is a little bit rough, so there's something going on with that there. Maybe I've got to calibrate it a little bit better. I've got a coolant leak from around the thermostat housing from somewhere. I can't see where yet, so I'm going to have to strip that back and have a look at that. And I've got to change a O2 lambda sensor because I damaged it when I was putting the engine in. So I have ordered one of those. It is the one on the back of the engine on the exhaust manifold, so that's going to be a proper pain to change. But yeah, we've done the hardest part now. Hopefully it's all finished now, it's all ready to go up for sale. So let's have a quick walk around it and we can see what extras we've done since I last finished filming. So guys, the GTA is all done. I've done a few more things since we finished last filming. I've had the wheels refurbished because they were rather dull, so they're all looking really good. It's got 4 really good tyres on it. I've detailed the engine bay a little bit, so that's looking a lot neater and tidier. Giving the car a good polish, so all that's left to do now is get it up for sale. So here we are, guys, we're all done. Everything has been done, tested, MOT'd, cleaned, put back together, double tested again. It drives beautifully, gear selection's beautiful. It went through its MOT with 0 issues at all. Typically, as soon as I've polished it, parked it outside for 5 minutes and it started to rain, which is really annoying, but it does show the beading on the paintwork. I mean, the interior is pretty much immaculate. Yes, it's still got my dirty floor mat in there because I'm still going to be in and outside of it with my dirty feet. Do need to clean the glove box lid still. So as you can hear, the engine is now all done and running really good. I did have a few little teething problems, as I said at the end in the last video. Had a little bit of a coolant leak just coming from the other side of the thermostat. Just needed resealing and that was all perfectly fine. And I also had a problem with the semi-speed gear selection being a little bit rough and not as smooth as I'd like it to be. It just needed bleeding again, so a quick bleed and a recalibration later using the multi-ECU scan software. And it was all perfect, brilliant, ready to go. So the big question now is, how much is it worth? I'm seeing these for sale for anywhere between £8,000 and £16,000. This is a Japanese import. It's done 53,000 miles, full MOT, full engine rebuild, full respray. You know, it doesn't really want for any more. It's got a few mods with the exhaust and things like that. Drives really nicely. So let me know in the comments below what you think about it. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed this series. But yeah, here we have another one all finished. Thanks for watching.